The council chamber stretched so far that the walls disappeared into artificial twilight. 2,000 representatives from 800 species filled the tiered seats, their bodies ranging from gaseous clouds contained in spheres to massive stone-like beings that hadn't moved in decades. The air recyclers worked overtime to maintain an atmosphere breathable for most attendees, creating a constant whisper throughout the vast space. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood in the speaker's circle at the chamber's center. A human in his mid-40s, he wore simple gray diplomatic robes. His black hair showed touches of silver at the temples. He had served the United Human Worlds for 20 years, the last 8 here at the council. He knew this room better than his own apartment. Next to him floated a holographic display showing star charts, colony locations, and wreckage from recent attacks. The evidence had taken his team 3 months to compile. 15 human colonies had been raided in the past year. The attackers used weapons traced to 3 different council species. Not old weapons, not stolen weapons. Fresh military-grade equipment with manufacturing dates from the last 6 months. The pattern is clear, Hyunwoo said, his voice calm and measured. These are not random pirates. The coordination suggests backing from established governments. We request a formal investigation. Speaker Mira then sat on the highest platform, her avian form draped in ceremonial gold. Her species had been members of the council for 12,000 years. Her 3 eyes blinked independently as she looked down at the human. When she spoke, her beak barely moved, a translator converting her clicking speech into standard Galactic. Ambassador Hyunwoo, the council appreciates your concern, however. Making accusations against member species is a serious matter. Humans have been part of this council for only 57 years. Perhaps you misunderstand how these processes work. Councillor Thalos rose from his seat in the lower tiers. The reptilian scales gleamed under the chamber lights, deep green with gold patterns that marked his rank. His species had held council seats for 8,000 years. If I may speak, honored speaker, Thalos said, his forked tongue flickering. The human colonies in question are located in disputed territories. The outer rim has always been turbulent. Perhaps humans should reconsider their expansion into regions they cannot properly defend. Their military is, after all, quite young by galactic standards. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Hyunwoo noticed the pattern immediately. The same species who had voted against human proposals before were nodding now. The same ones whose merchant fleets competed with human traders. The same ones who had filed complaints about human agricultural exports undercutting their markets. With respect, Counselor, we are not discussing disputed territories, Hyunwoo replied. 3 of the attacked colonies have been recognized as human worlds for over 30 years. The evidence clearly shows. Evidence can be interpreted many ways, interrupted Mira then. The council has existed for 40,000 years, Ambassador. We have seen countless young species make claims they believe to be true. Enthusiasm is admirable, but wisdom comes with time. Hyunwoo felt Captain Ji-won's presence behind him. She stood among the human delegation, her military uniform crisp despite the long session. She commanded 300 ships currently stationed in nearby sectors. He knew without looking that her jaw was clenched. Ji-won had lost friends in the attacks. Perhaps, suggested a voice from the upper tiers, humans should focus on consolidating their current holdings, rather than playing at galactic politics. Leave the complex matters to species with more experience. Laughter echoed through parts of the chamber, not everywhere. Some representatives remained silent, uncomfortable, but enough laughed that the sound carried. Hyunwoo had prepared for resistance. He had anticipated political maneuvering. He had expected some prejudice against his young species, but he had not expected open mockery, not after everything humanity had contributed over the past 50 years. He thought of Dr. Minji, who had revolutionized quantum communications, allowing instant coordination across council space. Of Engineer Daeho, whose terraform techniques had saved 6 dying worlds. Of the human medical teams who had contained the creeping plague before it could spread beyond the rim. Of the quiet diplomatic work his own staff had done, mediating disputes between species who refused to talk directly to each other. Speaker Mira then called for a vote. The motion is to launch a formal investigation into the allegations presented by the human delegation. This would require significant council resources and potentially strain relationships with member species. Those in favor? 3 lights appeared on the voting board. 3 out of 850 voices. Those opposed? 847 lights illuminated the board, turning the entire display red. The chamber fell silent. Even those who had laughed seemed surprised by the margin. Hyunwoo stood very still. His hands remained at his sides. His expression did not change. He had learned long ago that in diplomatic spaces, reaction was a weapon others could use against you. The council has spoken, Mira then announced. The motion fails. Ambassador Hyunwoo, the council suggests you focus on internal security rather than external accusations. Perhaps invest in better defensive capabilities for your colonies. Or, added Thalos with what might have been a smile on his reptilian face, consider that humans have expanded too quickly into too many regions. Return to your small corner of space. Leave galactic affairs to those of us who understand them. It would be safer for everyone. More murmurs of agreement. The message was clear. Know your place, human. Hyunwoo looked at the voting board one more time. 847-3. He nodded once slowly as if confirming something to himself. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. No protest. No angry speech. No threats or warnings. He simply walked, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. The human delegation rose as one. 37 representatives from different departments and colonies. They filed out behind their ambassador, silent and orderly. Captain Jiwon was the last to leave, and before she turned away, she met Mira Then's eyes for just a moment. The heavy doors closed behind them with a deep boom that resonated through the chamber. Well, said Thalos to those near him, that went better than expected. Perhaps they finally understand their position. Mira then watched the closed doors with two of her three eyes. The third scanned the chamber, noting which species looked uncomfortable with what had just happened. But she dismissed the feeling. Humans were emotional creatures. They would calm down and return to business as usual. Outside the chamber, Hyunwoo walked through the diplomatic quarter without speaking. His staff followed, equally silent. They passed other delegations who stared at them curiously. Word of the vote was already spreading through the station's networks. At the human embassy, Hyunwoo sent a single encrypted message to Earth. 5 words. Request permission to withdraw completely. The response came back in less than an hour. 2 words. Permission granted. Within 6 hours, every human ship in Council space received the same coded message. Within 12 hours, they began moving toward human territory. No explanations. No announcements. They simply left. The Galactic Council barely noticed at first. After all, what difference could one young species make? They would learn the answer soon enough. Dr. Minji packed the last of her research equipment into sealed containers. Around her, the Quantum Communications Institute hummed with activity that would soon fall silent. 40 researchers from 20 different species worked in this building. But only 7 were human. Those 7 were leaving. You cannot be serious, said her colleague Vexnar, his tentacles writhing in distress. The aquatic being floated in his support tank, following Minji through the lab. The cross-dimensional relay project is only halfway complete. We need another year at minimum. Minji continued packing, her movements efficient and practiced. The research is yours to continue. All the human-generated data has been removed from the shared servers, but the theoretical framework remains. You have the basic principles. Basic principles? Vexnar's tank bubbled with agitation. You designed the entire system. The quantum entanglement matrices, the dimensional anchors, the harmonic stabilizers. Without you, we cannot even maintain what already exists, let alone complete the project. You'll figure it out, Minji said quietly. She sealed the last container and entered her access code. The lab's door unlocked. Your species has been working with quantum systems for 3,000 years. Not like this. Never like this. Minji, please at least leave the technical documentation. The complete specifications. Minji paused at the door. For a moment she almost weakened. Vexnar had been a good friend. They had spent countless late nights solving impossible equations together, sharing meals from their respective worlds, laughing at the absurdities of trying to make different species understand each other. The council voted 847-3, she said finally. They made it very clear that humans should return to our small corner of space. We're complying. She left before he could respond. Across the station, similar scenes played out. Engineer Deho shut down the Terraform Assistance Program's main computers, wiping human-designed algorithms before he left. 23 worlds had active terraforming projects. All of them depended on the monitoring systems he had built. "What are we supposed to do?" demanded the Voltharian project manager, his rocky form actually trembling. "The atmospheric processors on Keelan 4 need constant adjustment. Without the prediction models, the whole ecosystem could collapse." Daiho handed him a data chip. "Here are the basic operational procedures. Follow them exactly. These are just surface-level instructions. What about adaptive protocols? What about dealing with unexpected variables? What about—" "I wish you the best," Daiho said, and walked away. At the central trade hub, Yuna closed down her merchant guild's office. She had coordinated trade routes between 300 systems, managing the flow of goods through bottlenecks and around dangers that most species didn't even know existed. Krevox, an insectoid trader who had worked with her for 5 years, clicked his mandibles in confusion. "But the shipment contracts? The scheduled deliveries? We have agreements running for the next 6 months. All human party contracts are terminated as of today," Yuna said, organizing the last of her digital files. "The penalty clauses have been processed. You'll receive compensation within 30 days. I don't want compensation. I want the shipments. Your freighters are the only ones willing to go through the dark space routes. How am I supposed to move goods between the inner and outer systems now?" Yuna looked at him with something like sympathy. "The routes aren't secret, Krevox. They're just dangerous. Your species has ships. Use them. Our ships lose 40% to pirates and void anomalies when they try those routes. Somehow human ships make it through every time. How do you do it?" "We just did it," Yuna said. "We didn't think it was special enough to mention." 2 weeks after the humans left the council chambers, Ambassador Veltara tried to call Hyunwoo directly. She had always maintained cordial relations with the human delegation. Her people, the Aquarian Collective, had voted with humans on several issues in the past. The communication line connected, but instead of Hyunwoo's face, she saw only a recorded message. His image appeared, but the eyes were slightly unfocused, a clear indication it was pre-recorded. "Thank you for your attempt to reach the United Human Worlds Diplomatic Service. Humanity has decided to focus on internal matters for the foreseeable future. We appreciate the Galactic Council's wisdom in suggesting this course of action. All external commitments are being concluded in an orderly fashion. We wish you well," the message ended. Veltara tried calling again. Same message. She tried every communication channel she had. Same message everywhere. She went to the human embassy but found it empty. Not abandoned with things left behind. Empty like they had never been there at all. The building had been cleaned, all equipment removed, even the wall decorations taken down. A single note on the door directed any inquiries to a legal firm that handled property transfers. In the council administrative offices, clerks began noticing problems. Small things at first. The quantum network that allowed instant communication across council space started experiencing delays. "Just a few seconds at first, then minutes, then hours. What's happening to the relay stations?" demanded the communications director. A technician pulled up the network map. 70% of the relay stations were marked in yellow warning status. They're still functional but degrading. The human maintenance crews were scheduled to service them this month. But they're gone. And apparently, they were the only ones who really understood how the systems worked. Can't we just read their maintenance logs? The technician scrolled through pages of technical documentation. This is all written in human mathematical notation. It would take us months to translate it properly. And even then, I'm not sure we'd understand it. Their approach to quantum mechanics is fundamentally different from ours. At the Galactic Medical Institute, doctors were discovering a different problem. Dr. Siak had developed treatments for 17 cross-species diseases over the past decade. He had been generous with his knowledge, training others in his techniques. But the synthetic compounds required for the treatments came from a production facility he had designed. That facility was in human space, and it had stopped taking orders. "We have enough stockpiled medication for maybe 3 months," reported the medical director. "After that, patients start dying. Can we manufacture these compounds ourselves?" The chief chemist looked overwhelmed. "I've been studying Dr. Siak's formulas for years, but he used human bioengineering methods that we don't have. The compounds require precision at the molecular level that our equipment can't match. We can make crude versions, but they're only about 30% as effective. So thousands will die instead of hundreds?" "Yes." Speaker Mira then called a session to address the growing concerns. The chamber was full, but the mood was different from 2 weeks ago. Less confident, more worried. The human withdrawal is causing temporary disruptions, she announced. But these are manageable. The council has existed for 40,000 years. We will adapt. Councillor Thalos stood. Honored speaker, I must note that several economic reports are quite concerning. It appears that human trade routes connected systems that we did not realize were interdependent. Some resource chains are breaking down. Then we will establish new trade routes, Mira then said firmly. This is temporary, but it wasn't temporary. Every day brought new problems. Scientific projects stalled. Trade shipments went missing. Communication delays grew longer. Medical supplies ran short. Agricultural systems that humans had optimized began producing smaller yields, and through it all the humans said nothing. Every attempt to contact them received the same polite, recorded message. They weren't angry. They weren't demanding anything. They had simply done exactly what the council suggested. They had gone back to their small corner of space. Krevox watched another shipment fail to arrive and realized something terrifying. Humans had been holding everything together. Not loudly, not obviously, just quietly doing 1,000 small things that everyone else had taken for granted. And now those things weren't being done. In her private chambers, Mira then tried to compose a message to President Jehoon of the United Human Worlds. But every draft sounded wrong. Apologizing felt like admitting error. Asking for help felt like begging. Demanding their return felt absurd after telling them to leave. In the end, she deleted the message without sending it. They would come back. They had to. They needed the council as much as the council needed them, didn't they? The first barrier gate failed on a Tuesday. Technician Junho had left detailed instructions before departing. 300 pages of documentation, translated into standard galactic language. Diagrams showed every component of the dimensional shield generators that protected civilized space from the void dwellers. Creatures that existed partially outside normal reality and fed on electromagnetic fields. Living beings generated such fields. Entire cities were like dinner bells to them. The barrier gates kept them out. 27 massive installations positioned around council space, creating an overlapping shield network. Humans had not invented the gates, but 30 years ago, they had redesigned them entirely. The old gates had failed regularly, requiring constant expensive repairs. Human quantum engineering had made them stable. At Gate 7, alarms began screaming. Engineers rushed to the control room, staring at readings they didn't understand. The dimensional harmonics were degrading. The shield strength had dropped by 15% in the last hour. Follow the emergency procedures, ordered the station commander. Page 312 of the human documentation. They found the page. It read, if harmonic degradation exceeds 5% per hour, immediately adjust quantum field generators to compensate. See Section 47 for adjustment procedures. Section 47 contained equations, pages of them. The math used human notation that looked almost like standard galactic mathematics, but with subtle differences that changed everything. What looked like a simple constant was actually a variable. What looked like an addition operator was actually something else entirely. Get me someone who understands human mathematics, the commander demanded. There aren't any humans left in council space, his aide replied quietly. The shield collapsed 6 hours later. Gate 7 went dark, leaving a gap in the defensive network 2 light-years wide. The void dwellers came through immediately. They hit the mining colony of Tresh 5 first. 15 million workers and their families, living in enclosed habitats on a barren moon. The creatures phased through the walls like they weren't there. The electromagnetic fields of living minds drew them like moths to flame. The death toll was complete. Not a single survivor. By the time Council military forces arrived, there was nothing left to save. General Thackrus stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the empty colony, and felt something he hadn't experienced in his 300 years of life. Genuine fear. How many gates did the humans maintain? He asked. All of them, sir, his tactical officer replied. They did the major maintenance work. We provided security and administrative support. Can we repair Gate 7? We're trying, sir, but without understanding their systems. The officer trailed off helplessly. Thackrus pulled up a star map showing all 27 gates. Assume the others will fail on a similar timeline. How long until the network collapses completely? At current degradation rates? 4 months. Maybe less. 4 months until all of civilized space was exposed to void dwellers, creatures that had killed billions before the gates were first built, 10,000 years ago. Thakris opened an emergency channel to the Council. While the gate crisis unfolded, other cascades accelerated. Admiral Soman had served as liaison to Council Defense Forces for 6 years. She had helped coordinate anti-piracy operations across 3 sectors. Her ships had been everywhere, filling gaps, responding to threats, keeping trade routes safe. Now those ships were gone. The pirates noticed immediately. Raids increased by 400% in the first month. Ships that had traveled safely for decades were suddenly being attacked. Convoys that had never needed military escort now found themselves defenseless. General Thakris tried to redeploy his forces to cover the gaps. But there were too many gaps and not enough ships. The Council military numbered 500,000 vessels, which had always seemed sufficient, until now. They realized that human ships had been handling half the actual security work, quietly, without asking for credit or resources, just doing it because it needed doing. Why didn't we notice? Thakris asked his staff during a late-night planning session. No one had an answer. Chancellor Droven of the Galactic Economic Bureau stared at financial reports that made no sense. The Council's operating budget had always been tight but manageable. Member species contributed based on their economic size and received services in return. Except the math didn't work anymore. These numbers can't be right, Droven said. We're showing a shortfall of 3 trillion credits per year. His chief analyst, a being made of crystalline structures that refracted light as it thought, chimed softly. The numbers are correct, Chancellor. Humans were contributing far beyond their required level. They made voluntary donations to 12 different council programs. Agricultural subsidies, medical research, infrastructure maintenance, educational exchanges. Why would they do that? The record suggests they saw it as their responsibility as council members. Contributing to the common good. Droven felt something cold settle in his thorax. And now? Now those contributions have stopped. We can reduce services, but that means cutting things like medical supply distribution, emergency response funding, and scientific research grants. Which services are most critical? The analyst made a sound like breaking glass. All of them, Chancellor. They're all critical. That's why they existed in the first place. At the same time, agricultural systems began failing. Not dramatically, just slowly, steadily producing less food. 3 council species contacted their human agricultural consultants, only to receive the same polite recorded message. Dr. Siok's absence hit harder than expected. 16 different species relied on treatments he had developed. The stockpiles ran out faster than predicted because people had been hoarding, afraid of shortages. When the medications were gone, people started dying. Not millions yet, but hundreds, then thousands. The numbers climbed every day. The crystalline plague returned to the Vextari homeworld. Dr. Siok had spent 2 years developing a treatment that had kept it in remission for a decade. Now it was back, spreading through their population, turning their silicon-based bodies brittle and fragile. The Vextari government sent 17 desperate messages to Earth. All went unanswered except for that same recorded reply. Ambassador. Veltara worked tirelessly to organize a formal apology delegation. She gathered representatives from 20 species who recognized what was happening and wanted to make amends. We made a mistake, she argued before the council. A terrible mistake. We must apologize formally and ask humanity to return. Speaker Mira then resisted. We made no mistake. We voted according to our assessment of the situation. If humans cannot handle criticism, that is their weakness, not ours. They're not handling criticism, Veltara said, her aquatic form rippling with frustration. They're following our advice. We told them to return to their corner of space. They did. We told them to focus on internal matters. They are. Then they're being childish. No, said Counselor Thalos quietly. The reptilian had been silent for weeks, but now he spoke. They're being obedient. We gave them orders and they followed those orders precisely. The problem is that we didn't understand what we were ordering them to do. Mira then turned all 3 eyes on him. Explain. Humans were supporting the council in ways we never noticed because they never asked for recognition. They just did the work. And now the work isn't being done. We thought they needed us. but we needed them far more. The council chamber fell silent. Gate 12 just went down, someone called out. Another colony is under attack. General Thackras's face appeared on the main display. We need human help now. My forces cannot protect everyone. The void dwellers are spreading. I need human ships and human engineers. I need them today. Mira then felt the weight of 800 species staring at her. She had been speaker for 40 years. She had guided the council through diplomatic crises, economic difficulties, and minor conflicts. But she had never faced anything like this. Open a direct line to President Jihoon, she ordered. I will speak to him personally. The line connected. But instead of the president, Ambassador Hyun-woo appeared on the screen. He looked the same as always. Calm, professional, distant. Speaker Mira, then, he said politely. How may humanity assist the council? We need you to return. The gates are failing. People are dying. We require your help. Hyun-woo nodded slowly. I see. And what does the council offer in exchange for this assistance? Mira then bristled. We are the Galactic Council. We do not negotiate with, she stopped. Hyun-woo said nothing. He just waited. What do you want? She asked finally. The words tasting like ash. I will convey your request to President Jihoon, Hyun-woo said. He will consider it. Good day, Speaker. The screen went dark. In the void outside Gate 12, another colony died screaming. President Jihoon received the delegation in a conference room, not the grand hall where formal state visits occurred. The message was subtle but clear. This was business, not ceremony. Councillor Thalos led the group. 12 species had sent representatives, all of them carefully chosen for their history of supporting human initiatives. Veltara was there, her aquatic tank positioned beside Thalos. None of the species who had laughed in the council chamber were present. Mr. President, Thalos began, his reptilian head bowing slightly. We come to apologize for the council's treatment of your people. The vote was unjust. The words spoken were cruel. We were wrong. Jihoon sat behind a simple desk, his hands folded. In his 60s, with gray hair and weathered features, he looked like what he was, a career government official who had spent 40 years in diplomatic service before becoming president. He knew every trick, every tactic, every subtle play of power. Thank you for your apology, he said. His voice was neutral. I accept it personally. However, I am not the United Human Worlds. I am merely its elected representative. Veltara leaned forward in her tank. President Jihoon, please. The situation is desperate. 12 colonies have been destroyed by void dwellers. Famine is spreading through the outer systems. Disease outbreaks are overwhelming medical facilities. We need human help, do you? The question hung in the air like a blade. Yes, Thalos said simply. We do. Desperately. Then you should have thought about that before voting 847-3, Jihoon replied. His tone didn't change. He might have been discussing the weather. You told us to return to our small corner of space. We have done exactly that. We are focusing on internal matters as you suggested. Our colonies are secure. Our people are fed. Our medical systems function properly. We followed your advice and we were fools, Veltara said. We admit it. Please, there must be something we can offer. Jihoon stood and walked to the window. Outside, the human capital city gleamed in the afternoon sun. Ships moved through the sky in orderly patterns. Everything worked because humans made it work. Do you know how many messages we sent to the council over the past 50 years? He asked. 37,000. Proposals, suggestions, offers to help with problems we noticed. Most were ignored. Many were rejected with condescending explanations about how young species don't understand complexity. Some were mocked. He turned back to face them. We offered to help redesign the barrier gates 28 years ago. We sent a proposal showing how quantum harmonics could make them more stable. The council rejected it, saying our technology was too new, too untested, so we built one ourselves in our space and invited council observers to study it. It worked perfectly for 5 years before they finally agreed to let us upgrade Gate 1. Then they saw the results and asked us to do all of them. We should have thanked you, Thalos said. You should have voted 387-3 instead of 847-3, Jihoon corrected. You should have investigated our claims about the raids. You should have treated us like equals instead of inconvenient children, but you didn't. So you will let innocent people die because we hurt your pride? Veltara asked, and there was anger in her voice now. No, Jihoon said. We will let innocent people die because you told us to stop interfering in galactic affairs. We are respecting your wishes. He returned to his desk and pulled up a holographic display. It showed shipping routes, humanitarian supplies, medical shipments. We are currently providing aid to 42 council worlds. Food, medicine, basic supplies. We are doing this because humans believe in helping those who suffer, regardless of politics. But we are not providing military assistance. We are not fixing the barrier gates. We are not restoring your communications network. We are not returning to council space. What do you want? Thalos asked bluntly. Name your price. There is no price. This is not a negotiation. The United Human Worlds has no interest in rejoining the Galactic Council. Silence filled the room. Outside, they could hear the city's peaceful hum. Ships landing and departing. People living their lives without crisis or fear. Beltara's tank bubbled with distress. But you must. Without you, the Council will collapse. The Void Dwellers will overrun dozens of worlds. The economic systems will fail completely. Medical programs will shut down. It will be chaos, death, suffering. Yes, Jihoon agreed. It will be exactly that. And it will be the direct consequence of the Council's decision to dismiss humanity's concerns and mock our contributions. He sat down again, his expression softening slightly. I'm not enjoying this. I don't want to watch people suffer. Every day I receive reports of deaths that could be prevented if we returned. Every day I see the casualty numbers climb. It keeps me awake at night. Then help us, Thalos pleaded. I am helping. Food and medicine. Humanitarian aid. But the Council told us very clearly that we should not involve ourselves in galactic security, politics, or infrastructure. We are following those instructions. Captain G1, now promoted to Admiral, stood near the door. She had said nothing during the meeting, but now she spoke. Do you know what we found in the wreckage of those raided colonies? The delegation turned to look at her. Proof, she continued. Definitive proof that 3 Council species were supplying pirates. Not just weapons. Ships, coordinates, intelligence about our patrol patterns. We found communication logs, payment records, everything. Thalos's scales paled. Which species? Does it matter? G1 asked. The Council voted 847-3 against even investigating. That means 847 species decided they didn't care if humans were being killed. Maybe they knew. Maybe they didn't. But they decided it wasn't worth finding out. Some of us voted to investigate, Beltara said quietly. 3 of you, G1 acknowledged. Out of 850. You'll forgive us if we find those numbers disappointing. President Jihoon checked the time. I have another meeting scheduled. Is there anything else? Thalos stood, his old body moving slowly. What will it take for humanity to return? Not as subordinates, as true equals. Full voting rights. Security Council representation. Whatever you want. It's not about what we want, Jihoon said. It's about trust. You broke it. That's not something you can fix with offers of power or apologies. Trust is rebuilt through actions, not words. What actions? Beltara asked desperately. That's for you to figure out. Humanity will continue providing humanitarian aid. Beyond that, we're done with galactic affairs. We're done being dismissed and disrespected while quietly holding everything together. We're done being invisible. He stood, signaling the meeting's end. I genuinely hope the Council survives this crisis. I hope you find solutions to your problems. But those solutions will not come from humanity. We have our own problems now. Our people demand to know why we wasted 50 years helping those who saw us as inferiors. The delegation filed out. At the door, Thalos turned back. For what it's worth, I understand now. You were never asking for gratitude. You just wanted to be heard. Yes, Jihoon said. We wanted to be heard. 847-3 was the Council's answer. Now we're giving you ours. After they left, Admiral G1 approached the President's desk. The reports from Council space are getting worse. Gate 23 just failed. General Thakris is pulling his forces back to protect core worlds. The outer systems are being abandoned. I know, Jihoon said quietly. Sir, with respect, we could stop this. Our ships could be at Gate 23 in 3 days. Our engineers could stabilize the remaining gates. We're choosing to let people die. Yes, we are. Jihoon looked tired. Because if we save them now, nothing changes. They'll thank us, maybe give us some medals, and then in 5 years or 10 years we'll be right back here. Another crisis. Another vote where they dismiss us. Another round of being told to know our place. So we let it burn? Jiwan asked. We let them face the consequences of their choices. It's the only way they'll learn what we were actually doing all those years. Across the galaxy, the Council fractured. Some species began negotiating directly with humanity, bypassing the Council entirely. Others blamed humanity for abandoning them. Still others blamed the Council leadership for creating this situation. Speaker Mirathan faced a no-confidence vote. She survived barely, but her authority was shattered. The Council that had existed for 40,000 years was tearing itself apart. And through it all, human ships delivered food and medicine, but nothing else. They saved lives, but not civilizations. They helped individuals, but not governments. The message was clear. You told us to stop involving ourselves in galactic affairs. We listened. 1 year after the humans walked away, High Chancellor Krenal stood before what remained of the Galactic Council. The chamber looked the same, but everything else had changed. 32 species had withdrawn entirely. Their governments collapsed or absorbed by neighbors. The remaining 818 members sat in a room that felt too large for them now. Krenal was young for a council leader, barely 300 years old. Her species, the Talrathi, had always valued practical solutions over pride. She had been elected specifically to fix what the previous leadership had broken. Members of the council, she began, her voice carrying through the chamber with natural authority. 1 year ago, we made a catastrophic error. We dismissed the concerns of a valued member species. We mocked their contributions. We told them to leave, they did, and we have paid a terrible price. The chamber remained silent. Everyone knew the numbers. 18 billion dead from Void Dweller attacks. 43 worlds abandoned, 7 species extinct. Economic losses that would take decades to recover from, if recovery was even possible. Medical crises ongoing, infrastructure collapsing, pirates controlling entire sectors. I have spent the past 3 months in negotiations with President Jihoon of the United Human Worlds. Krenal continued. Those negotiations have been difficult, but I believe we have reached an understanding. She activated the main display. It showed a treaty document, hundreds of pages long. Humanity has agreed to return to Council space, but not as junior members, not as supplicants. They return as equals with full rights and full voice. Murmurs spread through the chamber, some relief, some resentment, some shame. The terms are these. Humanity receives permanent seats on the Security Council, 3 seats. They receive full voting rights on all matters. They receive formal recognition for their contributions to galactic civilization, and they receive a public apology. Former Speaker Mirathan, now sitting among the regular delegates, stood slowly. And what do they offer in return? Military protection, technological assistance, economic cooperation, everything they provided before, but now as acknowledged partners rather than invisible servants. They're extorting us, someone called from the upper tiers. Krenal's eyes hardened. No, they're demanding what they should have been given 50 years ago, respect. We told them they were too young, too inexperienced, too inferior to have a voice. They have proven us wrong at a cost of billions of lives. If you view fair treatment as extortion, then you learned nothing from this disaster. She pulled up casualty reports, images of destroyed colonies, medical facilities overwhelmed with dying patients, economic graphs showing the collapse. Every single death, every failure, every crisis of the past year traces back to the absence of human support. Support they provided freely for half a century. Support we took for granted while treating them as inconvenient children. We did this to ourselves. Ambassador Hyunwoo entered the chamber. He walked the same path he had taken a year ago down to the speaker's circle. But this time the room fell silent with something other than dismissal. Honored council members, he said, his voice unchanged, still calm, still professional. President Jihoon has authorized me to present humanity's terms for renewed cooperation. He listed them methodically. Security Council seats, voting rights, economic partnerships on equal terms, technology sharing agreements where both sides contributed, medical research collaborations, infrastructure maintenance divided fairly, and one more thing. Every council member world will erect a memorial, Hyunwoo said. These memorials will honor the contributions made by all species to galactic civilization, but they will specifically acknowledge that humanity's contributions were dismissed and ignored for 50 years. The exact wording is specified in Section 47 of the treaty. You want us to admit our shame publicly, Mirathan said. We want the truth recorded. Hyunwoo corrected, so that future generations understand what happened here. So that no species is ever dismissed this way again. Not humans. Not anyone. Counselor Thalos stood. I support these terms completely. I will vote in favor. Veltara rose from her tank, as will the Aquarian Collective. One by one, delegates stood. Some quickly, some slowly, some with visible reluctance. But they stood. The vote was called. 804 in favor, 14 opposed. Hyunwoo nodded once, the same gesture he had made a year ago. But this time, when he turned to leave, High Chancellor Krenal stopped him. Ambassador, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer formal apology for our treatment of humanity. We were blind to your contributions. We were deaf to your concerns. We mistook quiet competence for weakness. We have paid for that mistake. But you and your people paid more, in insults and disrespect and wasted effort. I cannot undo what was done. I can only promise it will not happen again. She bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in her culture. Around the chamber, other delegates began bowing as well. Hundreds of species, hundreds of different customs, all expressing the same sentiment. Hyunwoo stood still for a long moment. Then he bowed in return, the formal human diplomatic gesture. Apology accepted, he said. Now let's get to work. Admiral Jaiwan's fleet arrived at Gate 7 3 days later. Her engineering team swarmed over the failing installations, their human-designed equipment already unpacked and ready. Within 6 hours, the gate was operational again. Within 2 weeks, all surviving gates were stabilized and upgraded. The Void Dweller attacks stopped. The killing stopped. People began rebuilding. Dr. Minji returned to the Quantum Communications Institute with a team of 40 researchers. Vexnar met her at the door, his tentacles trembling with emotion. I'm so sorry, he said. We should have valued your work. We should have fought for you in the council. You voted for us, Minji reminded him. You were one of the 3. Thank you for that. It wasn't enough. No, she agreed. But it was something. Now let's fix this communication network. Engineer Deho returned to find 12 terraforming projects in critical condition. 2 worlds were already lost, their atmospheres destabilized beyond recovery. But the other 10 could be saved. He worked 70-hour weeks for 6 months, training local engineers in techniques humans had developed. This time they listened. At the Central Trade Hub, Yuna reopened her office. Krevox was there within the hour. The routes through dark space, he said immediately. Can you teach me? It's not about teaching, Yuna explained. It's about approach. You treat dark space like an enemy to fight through. We treated it like a puzzle to solve. Different mindset, different results, and will you show me this mindset? Yes, but it'll take time. And you have to actually want to learn, not just copy our methods without understanding them. Krevox clicked his mandibles in what might have been amusement. I think we're all ready to learn now. Expensive lesson, though. Very expensive, Yuna agreed. 6 months after humanity's return, the first memorial was unveiled on the Council Capital World. It was simple, a wall of stone with names inscribed. Not just human names. Every species that had contributed to galactic civilization over 40,000 years. But at the top, impossible to miss, was an inscription. For 50 years, humanity served this council without recognition or reward. They built our communications, protected our worlds, healed our sick, fed our hungry, and maintained our infrastructure. We dismissed them. We mocked them. We told them to leave, they did. And we learned at terrible cost what it means to take quiet competence for granted. May we never forget this lesson. President Ji-hoon attended the ceremony. He stood next to High Chancellor Krenal as the memorial was unveiled to a crowd of thousands. It's honest, he said quietly. I appreciate that. We owed you honesty at minimum, Krenal replied. Along with everything else we owed you. You know what the strange thing is? Ji-hoon said. We would have kept doing it. All of it, even without recognition. We saw problems and we fixed them. That's just who we are. I know. That's what makes this whole situation so shameful. You weren't asking for power or wealth. You just wanted to be heard. Yes. We wanted to be heard. Krenal looked at the memorial, at the long list of names and contributions. You're being heard now, loudly. Former Speaker Mira then attended the ceremony as well, though she stood at the back of the crowd. When it ended, she approached Hyunwoo. I owe you a personal apology, she said. I was arrogant. I assumed my species' long history meant I understood everything better than you. I was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. Hyunwoo studied her for a moment. You weren't wrong about everything. Your species does have valuable experience and knowledge. The problem was thinking that experience made you superior, rather than just different. Will you forgive me? I already have. Holding grudges doesn't serve anyone, but I won't forget. None of us will. That's what the memorials are for. Mira then nodded slowly. Thank you. For that and for coming back. We didn't come back for you, Hyunwoo said, not unkindly. We came back because people were dying. Because void dwellers don't care about politics. Because plagues don't distinguish between species that voted for us and species that voted against us. We came back because it was the right thing to do. Even after how we treated you, especially after how you treated us. Because if we had stayed away, if we had let everyone suffer to prove a point, we would have become exactly what you accused us of being. A young, emotional species that couldn't handle criticism. We proved you wrong by being better than that. He walked away, leaving Mira then standing before the memorial. She read the inscription again, feeling its weight. In the council chamber, Ambassador Subin, young and sharp where Hyunwoo had been calm and measured, took her seat at the new Security Council table. 3 seats for humanity, positioned equal with the other major powers. The first motion before this council, she said, concerns the investigation of piracy in the Outer Rim. I believe we have some unfinished business from a year ago. The investigation proceeded. 3 species were found guilty of supporting pirates. Reparations were paid. Leaders were removed. Justice delayed but real, and in human space children learned a new lesson in their history classes, that silence could speak louder than words. That sometimes the best response to disrespect was not anger, but absence. That competence didn't require recognition, but it did deserve respect. The galaxy had learned something too. They had learned that the quiet species in the corner, the ones who fixed problems without asking for credit, were not weak. They were not inferior. They were not to be dismissed. They were essential. And now finally everyone knew it.